Today, I just want to talk about Jesus. I want to lift up Jesus. I need to magnify what he went through for us, for me. I hope you'll listen. I'm combining prophecies of Christ from the Old Testament with the biography of Christ in the New Testament, the two witnesses. I'm painting the portrait with the dark colors describing the suffering he went through to salvage us from the decision Adam and Eve, our parents, made, putting us in the salvage yard of sin and degradation. The Bible books that this tragedy that ends in triumph comes from are Isaiah 52:53, Psalms 22, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. As a newborn, evil, jealous King Herod put an unsuccessful contract out on Jesus. Because Christ had a life he needed to live, God informed Jesus' stepfather, Joseph, to put Jesus and his parents into witness protection in Egypt. After some years, the family came back into Israel to the ghetto town of Nazareth, a place of ill repute and bad neighborhoods, the poor and unwanted. Matter of fact, when Christ was choosing disciples, one of them, when approached to follow Christ, said, "What good can come out of Nazareth?" This disciple did not know that Jesus was like the beautiful water lily that grows up in a dirty pond. Jesus had older stepbrothers and sisters. The story of Joseph in the Old Testament with his older brothers was a type of foreshadowing the attitude of Jesus' older siblings as he grew up with them. Later, Jesus' brothers accepted him, one being the author of the book of James. Isaiah 53:2, "For the servant of God grew up before him, his father, like a tender plant and like a root out of dry ground. He has no form of comeliness or royal kingly pomp that we should look at him, and no beauty that we should desire him." It's not saying he wasn't handsome, it's just that he didn't have anything extra showing him as being rich and royal, etc. The leadership of Jesus' church was jealous of Jesus' influence upon the people. They spent much time trying to trip Christ upon the law, which Christ was the author of, except they had added traditions and human opinions, perverting the true purpose of the law God had given. They had put the letter of the law above the spirit of the law, which was love. Jesus told them the Sabbath was made for the benefit of man and not man created for the benefit of the Sabbath. They accused Christ of being possessed by Satan. They insinuated he was a bastard, born of a single mother. He was followed by undercover assassins seeking the opportunity to kill him more than once. Angels of God had to hide Christ and whisk him away from a crowd or a cliff to protect him from being stoned. Yes, angels were his secret service. Jesus had the best secret service ever. They were always with him as they are always with those who choose Christ. He was despised and rejected and forsaken by men, a man of sorrows and pains and acquainted with grief and sickness. And like one from whom men hide their faces, he was despised, and we did not appreciate his worth or have any esteem for him. That's Isaiah 53:3. Finally, the time came when God allowed Christ to be falsely arrested. This was done with the coordination of one of Christ's close associates, Judas. After Judas was paid under the table 30 pieces of silver, he led these wicked people to Jesus, kissed him on the cheek, so the conniving pastors, teachers, and elders were sure they got the right one. Jesus was taken to kangaroo court. Christ had no defense lawyer. False witnesses were paid to lie. The judge bribed by envy and jealousy, and a rigged jury. His hands bound, face punched, all by God's chosen people. They were chosen to spread the love of God to the rest of the world, but the opposite was done. Well, Jesus was handed to Roman authorities on total false pretenses. The Messiah was falsely tried 4 times. Once before High Priest Ananias, second time before Governor Pilate, third time before the Tetrarch Herod, and then again finally Pilate, who found Jesus innocent but allowed them to beat Jesus unmercifully and then crucify him. Jesus, while his skin tendons and bones were being torn through by the spikes in his hands and feet, pleads with his Father, Father, forgive humanity, because they really don't understand what they are doing. Surely he has borne our griefs, sicknesses, weaknesses, and distresses, and carried our sorrows and pains of punishment, yet we ignorantly considered him stricken, smitten and afflicted by God, as if with leprosy. Isaiah 53:4. When we sin, we really don't understand what we are doing. First, we don't understand how we hurt the thoughts and feelings of God. We don't understand that our sin is what put Christ on the cross. Our sin nailed him to the tree. He became sin for us because it was the only way we could receive righteousness and be reconciled back to God. But he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our guilt and iniquities. The chastisement needful to obtain peace and well-being for us was upon him, and with his stripes that wounded him, we are healed and made whole. That's verse 5 of Isaiah 53. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned every one to his own way, and the Lord has made to light upon him the guilt and iniquity of us all. Verse 6. He was oppressed, yet when he was afflicted, he was submissive and opened not his mouth, like a lamb that is led to the slaughter, and as a sheep before her shearers is dumb, so he opened not his mouth. Verse 7. And they assigned him a grave with the wicked, the two thieves nailed beside him, and with a rich man, Nicodemus, in his death, buried in his tomb. Although he had done no violence, neither was any deceit in his mouth. That's verse 9. Yet it was the will of the Lord to bruise him. He has put him to grief and made him sick. When you and he make his life an offering for sin, God the Father and God the Son and the Holy Spirit, he was or has risen from the dead in time to come. He shall see his spiritual offspring, whom he made the sacrifice for, whom he went through the torture for. He shall prolong his days, and the will and pleasure of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. That's verse 10. Thank you for listening. I'm just sharing.